3 major consultants had to see me before the sort of rubber stamp or the seal was put on the paper. But eventually, all 3 agreed, and the major consultant came in and said, in his wonderful accent, "Well, you've got a problem with the eye, boy. I suggest you have it out." And I asked, when? And he looked at me and he said, "Tomorrow." I didn't feel that losing an eye would be the end of the world. One imagined the worst, but you had this kind of feeling in the back of your head that I was lucky they've caught it in time. And then at the same time, you wonder how many other people have felt like this and ended up dead years later. I mean, what choice do you have if it's a choice between life and suicide? Somebody is going to save your life. It is going to save your life. The animal will gnaw its paw off to escape from the trap.
I'm a bit suspicious about that.
Yeah.
And that means I'm more than a bit suspicious, or I wouldn't be talking to you this way. I think that may well turn out to be malignant. If it does, it's not the end of the world. I think we can deal with that perfectly well without doing a mastectomy.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that most women are frightened of.
Well, I'm not frightened of that. I just want to know if it is that, can you get rid of it and it's gone?
Yes, we will.
I mean, my husband's cousin died 2 years ago with breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And she had secondary cancers. I don't know whether it's because she left it too late or what.
Mm.
But if you can guarantee that it's gone, I don't care if you take my bust off.
At this moment, you're not consciously thinking, "Oh dear, I'm going to be half blind," or "Oh dear, I'm only going to have half a breast," or whatever.
You don't know so much.
You're in the first place involved in saving your life.
Well, do you?
It's only after this that the consequences creep up on us. It's over. They've done what they said they'd do. But they don't give you any guarantees, do they? Think of all the people out there who've had direct experience with cancer. 1 in 3 of us. So why do I feel so lonely? I was a good patient. But being a patient is a medical role, a role we play in hospital for their benefit. No, actually, it's not even that one. As they shuffle through our case notes, looking at our blood count, sugar levels, histology, and all those other magical words that they use to define us, we cannot help but feel almost total dependency.
Phosphoride needromycin. So you've got to repeat the red injection.
The drugs haven't worked and the radiotherapy hasn't worked, and you're obviously still distressed by it, and it's causing you major problems. So it's going to be the best way of dealing with it.
Well, that's it then. If you've got to be done, it's got to be done.
Well, I can't see any alternative, and if you...
No. And I want to get right.
Okay.
Perhaps we expect too much of them.
I've got a meeting actually at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital at 2 o'clock. I think what I will have to do is I'll have to drastically amend my timetable.
Perhaps they expect too much of themselves.
This note, is that...
But faced with our helplessness, they know their role. Be busy.
And I'll stay and see that patient at 1 o'clock and I'll help Dr. Adair with the rest of the clinic. Okay?
Yes.
Just 1 tablet a day, and that's all you're going to need.
Be authoritative.
If you are worried, get in touch. I don't think anything's going to happen to worry you.
Exude confidence.
And we'll see you in 2 or 3 weeks then.
And be positive.
You're welcome. Bye-bye now. Hello, Mrs. Ashton. Let's just have a look at her notes before I go any further.
In a curious way, these secret pieces of paper become us, defined in their language.
They found the lesion when they examined it is palpable.
So when we face each other, the meetings are brief, the information limited.
Have they told you what tests they're going to do? So we'll do that today. There are some x-rays to be done. And there's a bone scan to be done. They'll give you an injection and then take a lot of pictures of you. Won't upset you. And a few blood tests.
And while we're in hospital, we willingly subject ourselves to the probing and prodding, the measuring and the assessing.
We try to detach ourselves, our minds from our bodies, to see the cancer as they see it, something that isn't part of us, an alien thing. A diseased organ that must be surgically removed or bombarded with drugs and radiation.
On the analysis, because certainly...
Yet we know we're different. We have a unique disease, and although we may not know all the facts, we know that they haven't found a cure for cancer.
If there's anything that bothers you, you just shout, all right?
So the doubt is always there.
And we'll see you. So that's very good. Good. We hopefully won't have any problems at all, ever again.
My wife was speaking to somebody the other day who had an operation here similar to mine in November.
Yeah.
I don't know the name, but apparently he's really struggling to recover from that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It wasn't the same disease as yours.
Same thing, yes. Apparently so.
Carcinoid.
It's fairly rare, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty rare. I don't know about it. I certainly haven't dealt with it.
No?
I don't think because I can't think of it. I mean,
I'm
you're
sure
the
they
last,
said it was the same hospital anyway.
You're the last person
Last November.
The last person I dealt with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Because I haven't got anybody with carcinoid who's struggling. They're all as fit and well as you.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Right, thanks very much.
All right, Tony. I'll see you in 6 months' time.
Okay.
Shout if there's problems before. All right.
Right.
The problem is, we take these doubts away with us, and then who do we turn to?
When you get home, give us a ring, and then we'll try and sort of sort out what the doctor said to you, and try and put you a bit more at ease about it all.
Obviously, I can't say to you, don't worry, because, I mean, that would be totally unreasonable. You are going to worry.
This little national agency, the only one in Britain, deals with 20,000 phone calls a year. Phone calls that are a testimony to the huge gulf that often exists between the cancer patient, their relatives, and the medical profession.
Are you supposed to be going back to the hospital today for a checkup? That might be. No, that's right. How did you get on?
And what did they say from there? Did they give you any idea about what tests they might want to do, or for why, or what did they? Bronchoscopy, okay, right. What have they said about the chest X-ray itself? They just said they used the word unusual, did they?
I think, you hear the word growth, and because the cancer hasn't actually been mentioned, you can choose to deny it if you want to. If you don't want to hear the word cancer, if you don't want to associate cancer with growth, you won't. And you can block that bit out, that side out.
I think, again, once he starts to come to terms with what's happening, he may be able to speak about that a bit more freely. Right now, what you're telling me, I'm getting the impression that he just doesn't want to discuss it.
What you can sometimes do is, when you think that someone really does know that they have got cancer, but it is difficult to tell someone, the way to do it is they say to you, what's really the matter? Have I got cancer? You can turn the question round and say to them, well, what do you think? What do you think's going on? And sometimes they will then actually go on to answer their own question, and they know deep down what's happening. But it's just really being given the opportunity and being allowed to bring it out into the open.
But it's a very difficult subject maybe for him to speak about. And whereas you really want to know the answers, he's avoiding the issues. Maybe he feels that he's trying to save your feelings by doing that, but it's not what you want. You need to know the answers. What about the community nurse? I mean, would she tell you if she knew, do you think?
In 1921, 2 months before he died, Franz Kafka wrote to a friend saying, "Verbally, I didn't learn anything definite since in discussing tuberculosis, everybody drops into a shy, evasive, glassy-eyed manner of speech." Today, the same applies to cancer. Only it's worse, particularly if you're young and want to be told the truth.
But they won't give her the information either. And it's up to you to make the decisions about your body. So really, you're in a situation now where you'd like to change doctors, but you're not sure how to do it. How do you get enough information, really, is what you're saying?
So do you know when you was
Right.
When you go into hospital? I doubt it.
To make the decision. So really, what you need is somebody to help you to make that decision, someone to give you the information you need so you can make the choice.
Cancer, as you know, can
Right.
arise in the lung itself. It can arise and...
So you weren't, in a sense, party to that decision?
No. My GP just came off the phone and she said, "Doctor said that you will go on chemotherapy straight away."
I mean, did you feel you had sufficient information during that period about
No, I
side
didn't.
effects?
And if I asked questions, it was resented very...
Really?
Yes, definitely.
How did you feel about it?
I persisted. I felt it
You're
was
the
my
kind of person who
right.
persists and finds out.
Well, I felt it was my right to know, and for other people to know as well.
So what happened after that course of chemotherapy?
Then I was well for another 18 months.
Yes.
And just felt maybe a little fatigued at times. And then I developed a pain in the chest, and I went for x-rays, and after various x-rays they decided I had a fractured rib. And every time I asked, it was a fractured rib.
What were you feeling yourself?
I was suspicious because they said that the x-ray therapy could have caused a fracture to the rib.
Yes.
So, and that they would give me x-ray therapy to fuse the bone together. And that just didn't sound right to me, so I went along to see my GP and I asked her opinion.
Yeah.
And she felt that there was a possibility I had secondaries again.
So it looked like your cancer might have come back a second
Yeah,
time.
there was another recurrence. And I said to her that I wanted them to be honest with me.
So you made it clear to your own doctor that you wanted
Yes.
the other specialist to be honest with you.
And she felt that I was right in
Yes.
asking.
And did that work?
It was very, very hard going. I think a lot of people might have given up and said, well, you know, I'm not meant to know what's going on in my body and what they're going to do to me.
But you persisted?
Yes.
And did you eventually get some kind of explanation?
Yes, I did, but unfortunately I had to change consultants to get that result.
So
which I
the
found
person you're seeing initially wasn't prepared to level with you, and you had to change doctors in order
to a
find
certain
one who would-
extent, but it, as I say, it was very hard going,
What
and
did
it
that-
wouldn't answer the
Yeah,
questions.
how were you feeling when you were being fobbed off, when you weren't getting answers?
I was angry because I thought, I'm actually asking. And I think because I actually asked directly, I should have been given direct answers, and I could cope with it.
Sadly, the kind of problem Sue had getting accurate information about the recurrence of her cancer isn't that unusual. There's something behind all this in my mind of the strong helping the weak, that the people in front of you are fragile And, you know, if you push it too far, give them just that bit too information, they'll fall apart. And that's actually a very pessimistic view of people, because people for centuries have taken bad news on the chin, worked it through and come out the other side. It's only a small proportion that can't. And that usually tells you more about the timing of the giving of the bad news or how it was done, rather than the person's ability to take it on board.
People might sort of look at me and say, oh, well, I can't relate to her because she's obviously very brave. I'm not. I cry like everybody else. I hurt inside like everybody else.
You mean when you think about things, you can hurt and cry?
Yes, I can.
But somehow you managed to get your act together remarkably. Helen's a young woman who had leukemia diagnosed, was given a course of chemotherapy. It seemed then to stay well for 9 months, but then far sooner than expected, the leukemia came back. She relapsed. And so now the predicament is, should she go ahead and have a further course of chemotherapy?
I know that the chemotherapy is likely to upset you in ways that you've already experienced, but I think that we can do lots to help that. I think that we can do lots to minimise those side effects.
All the sickness. You can do something about the sickness.
Yes, I think that we can do a great deal. I can't promise to take it all away.
Can you knock me out? Can you just get me through it? So
I'm sure that we can. I'm sure that we can do our best to do that. I think that perhaps it would be a good idea to let you start on the treatment to see how you get on. And for you to know that at any time in the treatment, if you felt that you wanted to stop it, that you couldn't take it anymore, that you can do that.
What? Just no more? Just
Yes.
stop like that?
If you felt that you couldn't bear it anymore.
I can just say so. Just stop in the middle.
Yes, if you feel that the suffering is too bad. Is that quite a weighty decision for you to take?
Yes, it is really.
Is that one of the problems about all this?
Making the right decision. Yeah. But perhaps if I could say that, if you'd listen to me.
Of course.
I'm stuck.
Yeah. Super. You see the difference?
Yeah.
See how your strategy was absolutely right? See how it works? You see, the idea of a year of hell is terrible. You're making it a month now, and she has an option, and she said beautifully, will you listen to me? Because often the pressure's on a young, attractive woman with kids, the pressure's on to treat at all costs, and we don't listen. Do we? Or what's the little chemotherapy we say? A little vomiting? And we use euphemisms where she's going home puking her guts out. Now she knows you might listen, she'll buy into the month, and she may buy into a second, third month. And if you then begin to say, the good news is your leukemia is getting under control, the payoff gets better. If it isn't, you can say, sorry, it's not working. She says, right, scrub your treatment, I'm going to spend the remaining time with my family. You see the whole point? You're acknowledging the uncertainty, you're exploring the options with her, you're giving her real feeling she's in the decision-making process with you, you're not telling, and the whole atmosphere changes. You no longer feel stuck. Get the idea? Okay, we'll wrap up. Go on, sorry.
Can I just say, I mean, that I think that last bit reveals Heather's uncertainty about taking the decision. And I suppose in a way it becomes easier for me as a doctor because it feels as though I've got the power again.
Yes, but the problem is that it's vital for people in this predicament to be pushed to make the decision. I mean, your feeling is to protect them, isn't it? Oh, poor lady, she shouldn't have to make such a momentous decision. She has to live with this decision. Let's assume she decides not to have it and her leukemia comes back. If you've advised all hella letters, she'll blame you for misadvising her. She has to, it's a kind of joint decision, but she's party to it. That way she can live with it either way. But if she allows you to make the decision and it's wrong, then you're setting up bitterness when she gets ill, and her family will also perhaps take a negative view of the medical profession for imposing decisions as well. Life decisions should be taken by the individual concerned in full knowledge of the options, And that's why you're being honest about chemotherapy, about the lack of a guarantee, is important. Although you might not think it, she can live with that. You're living with it. She's grown up, she's realistic. If you kid her, fob her off, and it doesn't work out, all hell will let loose. Learning to listen to patients, learning skills so you have the confidence to be honest with patients who want to know the truth. Learning that cancer medicine is not about treatment at any cost. Learning to share uncertainty and to admit that there is a limit to what you can do. These are very hard lessons for the medical profession, brought up to be technicians and problem solvers. It's sad that these courses run by Peter Maguire and his colleagues are the only ones of their kind in Britain. As long as there's some opportunity it might work, because they want to live. Whereas if you leave them with this long tunnel, and it's very difficult for people. And that's really what we're talking about. You must acknowledge it, whereas you attempted to soft pedal. Yeah. And kind of, not exactly pretend it wasn't happening, but make light of it and a little this, the euphemisms, diminutives, okay?
They're like an orangey colour, really nice colour.
That's right.
Yes, really lovely.
I think we've got to try and find something that does suit you, because although they didn't upset you, they really didn't do the job we hoped that they would do.
Oh.
Because that's why you had the fluid come back.
Back, I see.
And so we've got to try and get some medication. But we
which
won't give you
is
anything like you had before.
No.
Remember that chemotherapy?
Oh, no, I don't want that. Thank you very much.
What's that?
Chemotherapy.
You have bad memories of that. You were very brave.
Oh, it was terrible. I couldn't go through it again, I don't think.
Really?
No, too exhausting.
Yes.
But I had what I was told to have.
You did?
You said 5.
Yeah.
So,
Did you ever feel like skipping it?
yes, I did. I thought to myself, oh, I've got to go back there again.
Yes. Okay. Well, I promise you we're not going through that again.
I'm very glad about that, Doctor.
And so we'll better have a look at you. All right.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much. Good. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you next.
When I watch a scene like this, I have an image of a great dam of anxiety with a doctor standing underneath, knowing that if he allows a crack to appear, he'll be drowned in a deluge of emotion. We, his patients, know he doesn't have much time. And anyway, being a good patient means not being emotional.
Hold still.
So, he might phone back, I don't know. But I think he was just really very, very frightened about what was going to happen in the end.
Where the hell do I find the language? It's the things we can't say that come back to haunt us.
You go to bed at night and you can't sleep, and then if you take something to help you to sleep, you wake up in the morning, it's still with you. I've done it so many times, hoping that when I wake up, it'll go away, that it's not true, that it's all been a bad dream, and that, no, you won't die.
The worst times were waking up in the night when I was too frightened to feel the other breast for fear of what I might find. And I felt constantly as though, I can only describe it as though there was ice being poured through it.
What we come back to every single time is that nobody can tell you that your cancer won't come back at some point, sometime, somewhere, and nobody can take that away from you. And learning to live with that is as hard as living with the cancer. It's got to be. You know, it's easy for me to say that. Actually, a very hard thing to come to terms with and work through. What I can offer you is the same as the doctor has already offered you, is that, you know, your cancer was caught very early. It's a good cancer, good from the point of view of being a treatable cancer, and you've had proper treatment, you've had effective treatment, and you're well now. And it's, you know, things are as good as they can be, but they can never be what you want.
I can't walk around looking like this for the rest of my life.
I suppose, you know, I try to do things. I try squashing one side of me down and seeing what it looks like. Thought of drawing a great red lipstick line across the middle of it, to see what it would look like.
You've got to face it. Right. Now let's do something about it.
I feel creeping into my mind more and more part of this defiant attitude, I suppose, the feeling that I'm not prepared to hide my body for the rest of my life. I think after a little while, once I suppose the rawness of the scar has toned down slightly, then I think I've got to be accepted on my terms.
But can I accept me for the person I am now? Almost normal. A little bit of wax, paint and glass. A man with a lazy eye. A cancer patient for the rest of my life. Am I grieving for that lost part of myself? Or am I grieving for the person I was before?
In our library, there was a new book there called Living with Grief. It's mainly about bereavement, but the stages he describes and the tasks, he calls them tasks of grief, that one has to achieve. Well, first of all, he says they're appropriate to the whole of our lives, and secondly, they're appropriate to any sort of crisis. He does talk in terms of bereavement most of the time, but I could recognise the stages.
The most important point to recognise is that grief is not just something that happens to you. It's not just a patch of misery you have to get through as quickly as possible with the help of friends to take your mind off it. It's something you do. It's an active process, a journey for which you are responsible. You are the only person who can identify and carry out the task of your own grieving. But the language of cancer is a language of conflict. Brave, courageous, tragic. Oversimplifications fit more for an army than for individuals trying to understand and come to terms with grief, fear and anger. It's as if the public and the medical profession can't face not just our anguish, but their own fears. It's a double insult, because it isolates us even more. Deny your own fears, and you deny us. How often cancer patients talk about the friends they've lost, the relatives who never ring. You never hear the phrase living with cancer, do you? It's always dying of cancer. Public fear turns us into an army entrenched in a borderland of silence, facing death. And then the word itself. Why is it always tied up to descriptions of conflict? What's this phobia that makes every headline look like a war report? Everything becomes oversimplified. Cancer turns into a world of winners and losers.
1981, the Grand National. Bob Champion riding Alternati races to victory, 2 years after being told he was dying of cancer. It was a fairy tale, and like all good fairy tales, it was turned into a major film starring John Hurt and Jan Francis.
By using the word fairy tale, the reporter has put her finger quite unconsciously on the problem of this approach, which relies on oversimplification and the selling power of good news.
One day I had a meeting with an agent, and he said to me, "There's a property that you ought to do." I said, "What is it?" He says, "The Bob Champion story."
Can you help me, please? What are you doing here?
I just came out for a walk.
It's a nice hospital, isn't it? Much better than the one I was at before. Are you going to die, or are you going to get better?
Going to get better.
Bob Champion was cured, but his cancer affects less than 1% of male cancer sufferers. The cure rate has increased from 50% 30 years ago to over 90% now. Sadly, it's one of only 2 cancers that can genuinely claim to be successfully treated. The other is a cancer that this man is working for.
Surrounded by friends, personalities, pressmen and a full support team, Botham strode out for Land's End on his long march for leukemia.
30 years ago, the chances of a child surviving leukemia were almost nil. Now, due to advances in research and treatment, half these children survive at least 5 years.
The response was remarkable as the money now came clattering in.
As the fictional Bob Champion wanders into a cancer ward, we see the 2 success stories together. Treatment for children's blood cancers and testicular cancer have shown encouraging advances. Sadly, these 2 cancers represent less than 2% of the annual registration of new cancer cases. Am I killjoy? Well, certainly the cancer charities won't thank me for that previous statement. However, watching news reports about research tells us a lot about ourselves.
Academic scientists have made fundamental breakthroughs in the last 20 years on understanding the cause of disease, and that the pharmaceutical industry in the next 20 years should be able to turn those fundamental discoveries into practical medicines and into vaccines to prevent diseases like cancer, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia.
What I would say is that there will be a time, whether it's in my lifetime or not, when cancer will be largely a scourge of the past, just as TB now is. But to put a date on it, I think is taking things a little too far at this stage.
Well, doctors in the United States have been testing a new treatment for some forms of cancer, which gives great hopes for the future.
Substance is called interleukin-2. It's not yet the cure for cancer, but American researchers are calling it a major breakthrough, the beginning of a new era in cancer therapy.
It's quite simply a question of 3 competing instincts. What was said, what we heard, and what we wanted to hear. This man talked about fundamental breakthrough, about vaccines to prevent disease like cancer. He also said it would take 20 years. But did we hear that? This man talked about cancer being a scourge of the past, just like TB is now. He also said it probably wouldn't happen in his lifetime. The interleukin story was laced with hopeful phrases, all qualified but nonetheless said. Great hopes for the future, major breakthrough, doctors are optimistic, and a new era in cancer therapy. Television's about images. Often images of cancer that possess an almost sci-fi quality with names to match. Gold vapor laser therapy, gamma rays, immunotherapy, positron emission tomography. These images have a clinical, calm rationality. They're very seductive. The supine patient sliding into the world of the future. One could almost believe that machines can cure us. Cure? Well, there's been no progress for 40 years in the cure rates for the major cancers. And that's despite over 70 million a year spent on cancer research. It's an industry concerned with trying to solve a massive problem, one in which the human factor has become totally obscured. The needs and fears of the cancer patient are unscientific. They can't be rationalized, and industry can't cope with a problem like that. It's simply not a good investment. So it's often left to individuals who've been scarred by personal experience to do something. Courageous mother of two, Sue O'Connor, has launched a major campaign to help cancer sufferers after she was given the tragic news that she has barely 18 months to live. 32-year-old Sue has vowed to raise £50,000 for a pilot scheme to provide 2 Christie Care counsellors at one of the best treatment hospitals in the world.
I'd just like to say a very, very big thank you to everybody who came tonight, and also to the people who actually bought tickets but weren't able to come, so they still supported the event, and it means an awful lot to me, and it really does make everything worthwhile. So I'd just like to say thank you, and also to all the models who've worked very hard tonight. So just a big thank you to you all. Thank you.
Within the polite world of fundraising, some of the more uncomfortable facts behind an individual's commitment to a cause can become obscured. It's not surprising, really, but again, it's a measure of the public's fear.
I was told I had cancer, and 2 days later I had a mastectomy. And I left that hospital with no prostheses, no counselling, and no literature. At that time, I just felt so lonely, isolated, and very, very frightened. And if I'd had somebody who could actually sit down and listen to me and give me some help and really support I was looking for at that time. Support more than anything, because I was so vulnerable.
Sue's attempt to raise £50,000 should be seen not just in the context of her own experiences, but also of the hospital where she's been treated, an acknowledged centre of medical excellence, treating thousands of cancer patients every year, with millions of pounds worth of equipment, and attached to a multi-million-pound research centre.
When I went along to the outpatients, and I used to sit there and I used to sort of look around at the other people and wonder if they felt how I did. I mean, the fear never goes away. Even when you go for a checkup, it's still always there. It stays with you. It doesn't go away. It's not a thing you get used to.
There's something desperately English about all this. The jolly music, the cups of tea, the total absence of any genuine human contact between the two sides, patients and the medical staff.
I was absolutely terrified, and I just thought if one of the staff had taken the time to just stay with me for a few minutes, because it was a critical day for me that day, and that really distressed me that other people might feel the same way as I did.
The bustling about, the dreadful stiff upper lippishness, a constipated institutional world where everybody kowtows to the men in white coats. Yet here's the essential fraud. They know they've got feet of clay. They know they can't cure cancer. So you'd think we'd be the one group of patients they would meet on equal terms. Sadly, the opposite seems to happen.
This is the one you mean, here?
There's two in
That
there.
one, there's
One's
one there.
joined, the other
And
one.
the other one just below that.
Mm.
They're really quite small, actually.
They are, but they have
They're
grown.
slightly larger than last time. You haven't felt anywhere
Haven't
else?
dared to.
You haven't dared look. Okay. Sit forward now. Now, could you point to where this pain is?
There, really.
Right down the base of the spine
bottom
there. Okay. Now, does it hurt when one presses there at all?
No. No.
Does it hurt when I bash like that?
No.
No tenderness there at all. Okay, right, just lie back. Well, I can feel those two little nodules now, and I agree with you. I think they may be a little bit larger than they were last time. Now, you know you have problems in the bones, and what we're going to have to do immediately is to do an X-ray. I'll send you off for an X-ray right now. Then we'll look at it as soon as you come back from the X-ray department, and then I'll come and have another chat with you and see what we find. And I can't tell you anything until we've actually had a look at the X-rays.
But you will be honest, don't you?
Absolutely, of course.
Problems in the bones means that Sue's cancer is spreading throughout her body. She knows that. It's at this point that the whole quality of the consultation can change. Does the doctor share uncertainty? Does he explore the options? Does he level with the patient?
Okay. Well, good news. I just been and had a look at the X-rays, and if anything, they've improved since the last ones that you had in January. So that's good news for you. So what's happened is that there was a little area of abnormality in the lower part of your back where you're getting the pain at the moment, and that is healing up. And I think it's this healing response which is causing this slight discomfort that you're having in your back. So I don't think there's anything else to be done about it at this stage. And you don't need any other tablets except for simple painkillers to keep that disease, that pain under control.
So what would happen when it isn't in control, as you put it?
Well, yes, we can go through that now if you like, Susan. The situation is, I think, probably as good as it could be. We know that you do have this problem in your bones, and we know that there are 1 or 2 little tiny lymph nodes in your neck. But in this situation, what we're looking for, the best we can look for, is for you to have a response to treatment. Obviously, if you didn't have a response to treatment, we would be unhappy, both you and I. But now you're having a response. That's excellent. And these responses, particularly the sort of a disease that you have in your bone, can go on for quite a long period of time, 1, 2, 3 or 4 years. Right, so you've no more questions. We've finished that, have we?
I can't think of any. It's just that when I saw you last time, I went away feeling very, very pessimistic.
What was this, after January? Yes.
I really did, and you mentioned the lower years, and I thought, you know...
Sorry, I mentioned...
when I asked you what my expected lifespan could be, you said the lower years. And I presume that to be about 2 years, and you said it could be less than that.
Well, I have to be quite... You asked me to be quite frank with you,
Yeah,
and
I wanted you to be honest.
And I think this is... if you asked me to be quite frank with you, I must be so. And as you know, we're quite frank with patients in general. And you want to know what's happening to your disease from the point of view of your family and how to plan things for the future. And as you know, this disease can be quite a rapid one. But it does depend whether you have a response to treatment, whether it's relatively rapid or no. And of course you're having a response to treatment, so that means that you know, the time that you have is longer rather than shorter, and that's excellent. And so when I talked about the low years, seeing the response on your X-ray has made me put things up a little bit rather than the time that I said last time. And I said to you last time that everything does depend on the responsiveness of your growth. So I can't say anything other than this is good news for you.
That's what I want you to say. Do they really know the turmoil that you go through? Not just terminal patients, cancer patients as a whole, when they leave the hospital, how vulnerable they are. Who do they turn to? You know, who can they actually talk to?
Sometimes it makes you wonder, really, if he's actually being really honest with you.
Well, that has crossed my mind. But in the past, you know, I've told him that I want him to be honest with me. And up to now, I feel he has been very honest with me. But I just don't know what to think at the moment.
It's not that doctors are necessarily honest or dishonest. It's quite simply that in most cancer cases, there are no answers, no guarantees. Doctors continuously box themselves in by their inability to share these uncertainties.
So really you've come out more confused than you went in?
I expected either to find out that the disease was active again. I think I probably thought it was because I was having the pain, and then to be told it wasn't active, that in fact there was signs of healing, which I suppose I should feel some form of elation about that, and I don't. Yet I don't think I'm a pessimistic person or a miserable person, but it hasn't given me any hope. I mean, it doesn't alter the fact that I'm still going to die. So I can't really feel happy about it. As he put it, I don't feel happy about it at all.
There was, however, one moment in Sue's consultation that showed the problems doctors have with their own feelings.
I needed to know what the prognosis was. Not everybody does. Also, it wasn't easy for you either.
Yes, I don't think we better pursue that. We have to deal with that.
I know you have to deal with it. I'm just saying it can't be easy for you. So I was putting your side of it for you, and you couldn't cope with that.
I can cope.
No, you didn't. You showed them that you couldn't cope, that you sort of wanted to dismiss it with a laugh. And I don't think that was right, really.
Well, you're
because
wrong.
You must find it hard to cope with.
You're wrong. I don't find it that hard to cope. Look, if it was that difficult, I couldn't do it all the time.
No, but it shouldn't be too easy either, should it?
No, it's not easy. It's not easy.
Well,
but
there's an ambiguous statement.
No, God. Yes, I don't think this gets us. I don't think this gets us anywhere. I'm not trying to be evasive. I just don't think it's, to be quite frank with you, I don't think it's useful to go along that line. I don't think it helps
No, I think
anybody.
I just had a one-sentence answer, and that would have been fine, but we went all around the houses, and then...
I don't think it helps to discuss that.
So that's your way of saying sort of, that's discussion finished.
That's discussion's finished, that's
Yes.
right. No, but, you know, I don't think it's the thing to discuss. I think what this program's about is discussing the approach to your particular problem.
Yeah, well, and that also involves you, don't forget. Yes, it does.
A month later, they changed Sue's prognosis. They were no longer sure how long she'd live, and are now reviewing her case on a monthly basis. It isn't a question of what the patient wants to hear, bad news or good. For as long as doctors remain defensive about cancer, the patient will live in a limbo, almost childlike, hanging on his every word. Because there are no answers in cancer, the medical profession should face up to this, share these uncertainties, and get off their pedestals. Maybe then we'll all start to rid ourselves of cancer phobia and grow up a little.